All right, we're live. Let me make sure I'm still speeding, but we are live, which is nice.
Daniel,
Hey, yeah, there's the tweet. So,
we have to stop meeting like this, Dan.
no, I love it. I'm
We have to stop
exhausted.
meeting like this.
I figured we'd be talking about Mario Cristobal, but apparently that's going to be put off. Like he's going to Miami, but it's not nothing has happened yet. So, we're talking about something that has happened. And that's Brent Venables,
Yep.
long time courted defensive coordinator of Clemson to be a head coach or whatever at a school. Maybe somebody wanted to pay him $5 million to be a defensive coordinator. I don't know. But Brent Venables going back to Norman. Of course, he had by all accounts, pretty terrific career. He was a longtime assistant and coordinator there, part of the 2000 national championship squad, and was there until, I believe, if my eyes are correct, 2011, at which point he was hired by Clemson in the wake of the Tigers being absolutely demolished by West Virginia. Was it the Orange Bowl?
The Orange Bowl. Yeah. I
That's
remember that
Tavon
Orange Bowl well.
Austin touch sweep, the touch pass, if you remember. Kevin Steele, very slow, if at all, able to adjust. That then defensive coordinator for Clemson to adjust to that toss sweep that West Virginia had instituted, and I think scored 70 points. Brent Venables brought in and almost immediately course corrected the Clemson defense, turned that defense into a juggernaut as Clemson went on to appear in and win national championships, plural, over Alabama. And up until this season, a juggernaut overall, but the defense has been pretty excellent this year, all things considered.
Sure.
So he finally makes the move back to Norman, takes over for Lincoln Riley, a decidedly different direction, obviously, than where Lincoln Riley took the program. But of course, we know Bob Stoops' background was on defense. So I guess back to that side of the concentration from the head coach. And I imagine Oklahoma fans are pretty happy about it, all things considered, how being as surprised as they were by Lincoln leaving after Bedlam. What do you think? What do you say?
I think he's a guy that you are familiar with.
Yes.
He's a guy that, by all accounts, had a really difficult time leaving Oklahoma the first time around. He's a guy that I think will stay. He's 50 years old.
Sure.
He's got a lot of coaching left in him. And if you look at his track record, he has stayed everywhere he's been, right?
Sure.
He played under Bill Snyder. That's how he got his start as a football guy in college football, and coached at K-State for a little bit. He was a GA. He was a linebackers coach before he moved on to work at Oklahoma. He was at Oklahoma for a good long time. He's been at Clemson for a good long time. So I don't think this is necessarily a guy looking to jump around, despite the fact that he is maybe more defense minded than Lincoln Riley. He's certainly not like Lincoln Riley in the sense that he's looking to go to the biggest bag of money. I mean, this is a guy who's had numerous opportunities along the way to go and coach, maybe not quite at the level of Oklahoma, but he is a name that has pretty continuously come up whenever we have these coaching carousels. So the fact that he is now the guy at Oklahoma, it makes a lot of sense. If I'm an Oklahoma fan, I feel really good about it. Of course, the next question is, as this offense has been so dynamic over the years now, over the last couple of seasons under Lincoln Riley, had a couple Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks, guys get drafted into the NFL. What kind of hires will he make on the offensive side of the ball? How will he fill out a staff? You know, these are the next obvious questions, but I think at least as a starting point, they went with a very safe hire, somebody who is familiar to the fan base and someone that I think most people speak very highly of. You're not going to find a whole lot of people who speak ill of Brent Venables. Most people like him. They think he's genuine. They think he's a good coach and very good at what he does. And so if you're Oklahoma, yeah, I think you're thrilled that this guy was still on the market when you had a coaching vacancy.
Sure. Well, there is one group of people who I think speaks ill of Brent Venables, and that is opposing offensive coordinators who are absolutely positive he is illegally stealing signals, which, by the way, is very much legal. But no, that has long been the word, that he is particularly adept. That would be the word.
Yeah.
At decoding opposing offenses' signals, which is totally legal, and it's on the offenses to hide their signals unless he's doing something against the rules in some sort of WikiLeaks fashion. That remember WikiLeaks? How quickly have we just swept that under the rug? The ACC is a wild place.
Crazy.
Yeah. So other than that, which by the way is an amazing thing, you would love it if your team did it. I would love it if my team were able to quickly decipher what other teams were doing. But no, his reputation is sterling, and it has gotten to the point because Clemson paid him so well, right? $2 million, whatever he was making, that he was being paid an incredible salary to win football games at an elite, hugely successful place. And why go somewhere that needed to start from scratch when he's got it good? In terms of what the talent he was able to help bring into Clemson and develop and turn into NFL draft caliber players, it was a great gig for a long time. I think 2012, you're talking about 9 seasons, if my math serves.
Yep.
So Brent Venables was choosy, chose a place he was familiar with, and I don't have the Oklahoma roster in front of me. I would venture a guess to say there's work to be done on the defensive side there. Work to be done we saw Jaden Hazelwood and a couple other guys already announced, Theo Wees, guys like that have announced their transfer. So work to be done in terms of filling out the entirety of the roster, unless some of those guys opt to come back who have entered the portal. But I saw Jaden Hazelwood, former #1 receiver. Arkansas, right? He's going to Fayetteville. So I imagine he is going to hire aggressively. I would imagine that the assistant pool is going to be robust. The name Jeff Lebby came up, and I don't know if you are immediately familiar with the baggage involved with Jeff Lebby.
I am. Yeah.
So don't know exactly if there are any ethical or moral roadblocks there for Oklahoma's administration. We'll see, but he's in the SEC. He is succeeding at Ole Miss. And by the way, the illusion is, I think he's Art Briles' son-in-law, and he was very vocal in support of Art Briles when everything went down at Baylor, but has not been considered to this point to be all that radioactive for whatever reason. So we'll see where he goes with the offensive coordinator hire and where he goes with the future of Oklahoma football in terms of guys who are committed or have decommitted, and if he can bring them back to Norman. It's a fascinating hire. It's a great hire to me. And I know Oklahoma fans, I shouldn't paint everybody with a broad brush here, but there was some anti-Venables sentiment, right?
Yeah.
And in Norman when he left, like they had just sort of gotten sick of him and he was a scapegoat. I went back and looked. The last 3 years in Norman, Oklahoma exclusively fielded top 15 scoring defenses nationally, which is so strange to say out loud. In terms of points per drive, it was like 15, 11, and 6 or something like that. I can get the exact numbers. But all things considered, get that replaced by Mike Stoops and where that defense went. Okay, so maybe he wasn't so bad to those specific Oklahoma fans. So an interesting hire, I think a praiseworthy hire. And with Oklahoma going to the SEC, what are your visions for where this program could go?
My visions for where the program could
go.
go.
So we had an idea of what the Oklahoma program was and is in that moment under Lincoln Riley, their strengths, their weaknesses, deficiencies, ceilings, whatever. And so we said, okay, they win the Big 12 every year. They, get to these incredible games in the postseason, be it playoff or whatever, seemingly every year, and acquit themselves generally pretty well, even though they haven't won a playoff game under Lincoln Riley. But now it's a whole new equation, and we don't know what to expect from a Brent Venables Oklahoma team. The tweet just came out like 28 minutes ago. But in your mind, is it possible for Oklahoma to get to a point where they are competing for SEC titles in 4 years or within 2 or 3 years of joining the conference, whenever that is?
Look, I mean, that's an impossible question to answer.
Of course.
What I can say about Venables is that Venables has proven that he can put a defense out there that performs at the highest level. Mm-hmm. What he's done on the defensive side of the ball at Clemson with that wealth of talent that Dabo Swinney has brought in on the recruiting trail has been nothing short of remarkable. You said it earlier. The offense has been a bit of a struggle this year for Clemson. We've been following that story all year long. Defense, not so much. Defense only because of injuries and maybe some youth here and there. But by and large, the defense has been the strength of that team, and it's been consistent year in and year out. So Venables is a guy who knows what it takes to win at that level. Now, Clemson's not SEC. Clemson may as well be SEC with the way that they play, build their roster, and compete for national championships. So I think it's definitely a bit of a tide shift with regard to philosophy. Brent Venables is most certainly going to be looking at things like defensive line play. He's going to be looking at building a secondary. He's going to be trying to shore up that linebacking core. And for many Oklahoma fans, that may be a breath of fresh air. Because as we
Sure.
said on our show time and again, if only the defense could get marginally better. We were hopeful when they brought over Alex Grinch, and it did get marginally better under Alex Grinch. It's still not near to the level it was under Venables when he was
It was
there.
last year. Last year they became a top 30 defense, especially when Ronnie Perkins was playing and really popped back half of the shortened season. But otherwise, it's been 70s, 80s, as low as 110 or whatever under Lincoln Riley. But yeah, last year at least there was fresh air for Oklahoma.
Exactly. So that consistent level of defense, I think, would definitely be a welcome addition in Norman. I think that'll be the big change. As you said earlier, he has proven pretty much everywhere he goes, he can make an immediate impact on that side of the ball. Should not have difficulty recruiting to Oklahoma. Recruiting has been a very big time strength of this program, for the last few years running now. So I think he'll be fine in that department. How well can they do in the SEC? Look, I think they can do really well in the Big 12, if only because talent's still on the roster and maybe an added boost coming on defense. The SEC remains a giant unknown. First off, we don't know exactly when that's going to happen. Secondly, we don't know who he's going to hire as his offensive coordinator. We don't know how recruits are going to react to this sea change, if you will, in Norman. Maybe some will view it away from offense and going more in the defensive direction. So I feel like it's an impossible question to answer. I do feel like, though, if only by association, Brent Venables is a guy who has proven himself to be a worthy candidate. There's a reason that his name always comes up, if not for head coaching jobs, but for other high-profile DC jobs. So my hunch is that this is a guy who is widely perceived in the industry as someone who knows what he's doing, knows how to build a program. Much the way it's probably not the perfect metaphor or comparison, but much the way Kirby Smart learned for a while.
Very patient. Yep.
Under Nick Saban, and was very patient and just sort of waited his turn to find something that made sense for him. In his case, it was going back to Georgia, a place that he knew well. So I think if you're an Oklahoma fan, look, all those years under Dabo Swinney, they've achieved incredibly high highs. To come back home to Oklahoma, if you can have that same level of success that Kirby's having right now at Georgia, I mean, you'll take that in a heartbeat.
Oh, absolutely. No, there's still two reverberating places with this move. Obviously, Clemson being the other one, and where they go at defensive coordinator after a very strange year for Clemson in terms of, the defense was fine, but in terms of the changes at Clemson, and now obviously there are rumors swirling that the AD, Dan Radikevich, I think that's how you pronounce that, right? Or am I just saying it like the old Boston College linebacker? What was his name? Tyler Matakevich? Was that who it was? Was that Temple? Or was
Temple.
that BC?
That was Temple.
Yeah, Matakevich. Was that his name? So
I
hope I pronounced it right, but it's late for me, for my tired and weary eyes. But yeah, with Oklahoma, yeah, absolutely. It's going to be the roster thing. It's going to be what do they run in terms of defense? And also in the short term, the Big 12, and I know this is like at this point it's cliche and it's rote and whatever, that this isn't an offensive conference, right? Who played in the Big 12 championship game? Not two teams led by their offenses. All due respect to Spencer Sanders and Gary Bohannon and Blake Shapen. This was not a matchup of killer offenses. The ascendance of Iowa State, they had playmakers on offense and there were good offenses, but this was a team led by its ability to turn teams over and get stops on defense under John Haycock, I believe is his name, the Iowa State defensive coordinator. So what we're seeing is the result of a sea change within the conference, right? Matt Rule came in to Baylor and said, I know the Big 12 has this reputation for offenses, but what we're going to do on defense is going to be pretty crazy. I'm paraphrasing there. That was not his opening press conference. But it came true. He built an incredible defense, he and Phil Snow at Baylor, and that was part of the narrative shifting within the Big 12 about Big 12 defenses. And I think it's only going to go up now that Oklahoma has hired Brent Venables and whatever defensive mind Brent Venables brings in to run the Sooner defense. It's hard to imagine now with the flexibility of the portal that OU won't have playmakers on this defense within a year, right? That his reputation precedes him. He can go into Texas, and I know everybody goes into Texas, but Oklahoma is not terrible in terms of recruiting ground in the general Southwest and wherever. Oklahoma's a big name that's going to be in a big conference, and I just think it's going to make a leap from like 75th to 30th like this. And I
Yeah.
don't think that's an unreasonable expectation given Venables' past. Now, he's not the defensive coordinator, we don't think, of Oklahoma, but I think he's going to have a very specific vision for this defense that adapts really well like it did at Clemson. What do you think about on the Clemson side of this? I'm not going to ask you for,
Wow.
defensive coordinators who could dominate the ACC Atlantic, but is Clemson to you, and it is to me, but is that a destination given the talent that will continue to be on hand in Clemson?
Well, I have a couple thoughts on that.
Oh,
So
please.
before I even go into the Clemson coaching situation,
Mm-hmm.
um, we had on our show, I want to say over a year ago now, Larry Williams from Tiger Illustrated. And one of the questions that I asked him about the Clemson dynasty was sort of how I framed it was, what will it take to derail this, right?
Mm-hmm.
This machine that we've seen under Dabo Sweeney. And he wasn't really sure. We're dealing in hypotheticals, and Larry's an honest guy. I think,
Sure.
I don't think he nor anybody really expected to see this season what ended up happening at Clemson. Still did pretty well, but it certainly was not up to expectations. And Larry mentioned a couple things, most notable of which was what happens if there is big time turnover on the coordinator level or
Mm-hmm.
among assistant coaches. So, Brent Venables has been there a long time. He's been very successful. Tony Elliott's been there a while. There are rumors that he could be going to Virginia or maybe somewhere else. Who knows? Um, this could be really the first time that we've seen this level of turnover at Clemson. And it'll be interesting to watch and see which direction they go. Dabo Sweeney gets a lot of credit, rightfully, for hiring really bright assistants when he first took over that job.
Yes.
When
Well,
he
there's
was
the
learning,
Dabo model, right?
right,
That
the Dabo
everybody
model.
talks about
He
replicating. Yeah.
he gets a lot of credit for that, rightfully so. He hired very, very smartly, and it has paid dividends. But there also have been some stinker hires in there along the way. Hasn't always been
Sure.
great. And so I wonder if
And he
enough
did
atten
lose what? Jeff Scott a couple years ago, the new USF head coach. So there has been change at coordinator, but it was a co-coordinator situation with he and Tony Elliott. Yeah.
I just wonder if folks will be as locked in on that Clemson situation as they seem to be on many of the head coaching jobs that are out there. You could argue being DC at Clemson, OC at Clemson is every bit as prominent as the head coach at, a number of different schools. So it'll be sought after. It'll be
Sure.
sought after. If Manny Diaz gets fired from Miami, maybe he'll have a home. Maybe he'll have a home at Clemson or up at Penn
Oh my
State. I
God.
mean, there will be suitors for some of the top defensive coordinators out there, to say the absolute very least. But I'm curious to see how he's able to rebound from this over there at Clemson, and put the pieces back together, because again, they're not really in any short supply with regard to talent. I
I
don't know
believe
which direction they head. I have no
right.
idea which direction they head. It's still kind of early in the game here, but my hunch is that they will have people calling them, and they won't necessarily have to call to find their next hire.
Yeah, could you imagine? I don't know what's going on with the NFL. I saw Joe Brady, but I guess could be a name for Oklahoma if he's interested in college. He would only basically, I'm sure, listen to major programs at this point. But with regard to Clemson, man, if like is Matt Rule getting fired by Carolina? I know Joe Brady is no longer there. Like, are the Panthers terrible, or is he not
We're
long for
college
Carolina?
football people, Dan. I don't know.
Well, no, I was just thinking because I mentioned Big 12 defenses. It reminded me of Phil Snow, who is now he's still, I think, the Panthers defensive coordinator. He's in that footprint of Clemson, of course. Tony Gibson's at NC State. Will Muschamp and Todd Grantham are just out there. I know Will Muschamp is at Georgia now, but in terms of coordinator jobs, Will Muschamp right there.
Yeah.
Anybody like there are great coordinators, but a lot of them are being paid a ton of money by top schools. Like, right, Mike Elko is a great coordinator, but he's making a crap ton of money at a major school in Texas A&M. So I just, I don't know if Clemson is pulling a huge name like that unless they're paying that person Venables money as well. Like, as I look the best defenses in the country, like, okay, Baylor has Ron Roberts, did a great job, and he's Dave Aranda's mentor, so he's got this close personal friendship with him. Like you look across the country and like in the specific Southeastern footprint, there's not like, Dan Lanning. Why would Dan Lanning leave Georgia to go to Clemson?
Right.
when
Right.
his next stop is probably as a head coach somewhere. Maybe he's the next head coach at Oregon. So I don't like Barry Odom. Like that's an upgrade, right? Do
Yep.
they go after Barry Odom at Arkansas? That would be an incredible pull. But like, don't know. I don't know. I don't know what Dabo's relationships are in the coordinator world and the assistant world, given that he hasn't had to make a major hire in just so long. But I imagine Clemson. I don't know if there's an internal candidate, but they're going to pay. They're gonna pay market value, and they're gonna, I presume, get somebody very strong.
Well, let's take some comments, Dan. I know we've got
Please.
some folks writing in here. We appreciate everybody stopping by. Kyler's feeling it.
I love it.
Boomer Sooner. Joe Brady to Oklahoma could be interesting. I want him to return to LSU, but I could see him at Oregon as well. Joe Brady's going to be a name. Look, if only by default, because of what went down at LSU. The 1 year he was there, he had Joe Burrow, which helped.
Right.
But a generational team, once in a generation. So with that in his resume, yeah.
And he wasn't relied upon. He was only there for a year. He was the passing game coordinator, and the ongoing word is not a big fan of recruiting, which is typically when a guy jumps to the NFL at first chance. There is an element to that. I remember Chip Kelly was just like,
it's the old
not that
Bill
he didn't like
O'Brien thing.
recruiting.
The old Bill
like,
O'Brien thing. Let's get the hell
right.
out of here.
Yeah,
we don't want to deal with
exactly.
these people.
Big 12 has been an offense only league for a couple seasons now. Totally agree. Or
totally
has not
agree.
been offense only. Yeah.
Totally agree with that sentiment.
Yep.
I think my point though about Oklahoma is that Oklahoma is so good on offense. They're so good on offense, and they have lacked on defense, even despite the fact that they've gotten a little bit better. If they would improve, let's say, 25 spots in terms of efficiency, which is totally plausible with a guy like Brent Venables. If you were to have that same level of offense combined with a better defense, that would make that team exponentially better. Exponentially better.
Of course.
You wouldn't have some of the same slip-ups that we've seen in recent years with Oklahoma. So it's a good team. They've obviously still got a lot of talent, even though they've got some guys transferring. I don't think talent will be an issue. But my only point is getting that defense just a little bit better. A little bit better, realistically better, I think makes them, far and away the favorite in that conference, at least as it's presently composed.
Also, same commenter, I think Reggio, is that how we are rolling with this?
Sure.
As an Oklahoma fan, I know folks would bring up that we didn't like BV, Brent Venables, but really the issues were with Mike Stoops and Bob's bias for his brother. We all loved Brent Venables and are super stoked he's back. I would imagine that this is the sentiment of the majority of the Sooner fan universe, and it's awesome. It's awesome to see that you lose a big name, you gain a big name, and hopefully, because we're 2.5 weeks out from the early signing period, man. And we got the question from Andrew here, which is the huge one. Do you think Caleb stays?
Well, it depends if you believe.
Probably call number one, but yeah,
it depends what you believe when you listen to those late night Twitter spaces that I've been tuning into.
But you're into.
That I've been tuning into at 3 a.m. Eastern time just for the hell of it.
Yeah.
The sentiment, as far as I can tell, from Oklahoma fans, this is not through any accredited source. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm just not paying close enough attention.
Shh, be cool, everybody. Ty's breaking
Everybody news. Be cool. I'm not breaking
babies.
Damn thing.
Yeah.
Maybe on my own reputation.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of folks seem pretty convinced that Caleb is going to have some say in who's hired, how the offense is run, et cetera, et cetera. You and I are on the record saying we kind of think that's a bad idea. Caleb's a true freshman. He's good. He may not be all world.
By the way, you can humor him at the same. You can play this.
You can play
everything to be like.
I get it.
Yeah, great
I get
point,
it.
Caleb.
And see, that was sort of the beauty of how Jack Swarbrick handled the question, at least when they asked him it at his press conference, because they told him, or they asked him, "Are you going to let players have a say in who gets hired?" And he said, "Not with respect to actual candidates, but with respect to certain qualities, certain attributes, the culture of this place. With respect to all of those kind of intangibles, the answer is yes." So Maybe that's how you humor a guy, maybe not. We will see. I'm sure a story will come out. Somebody will write it for The Athletic. To what degree Caleb Williams was involved in, if at all, in this process. I think it would be short-sighted. I do agree, though, that it would be a good start, especially with Spencer Rattler transferring out to try and do whatever you can, maybe to humor him, keep him aboard, and give Brent Venables a good quarterback to start his tenure with.
Okay, so we have an opposing viewpoint. I like it. Here it is. This is a terrible hire, Joshua says. Brent is cut from the same cloth as Mike Stoops. Hothead. Will not be able to have the finesse required to guide an entire organization. I don't know. I think a lot of football coaches are hotheads. From what I can tell, a lot of football coaches do get to emotional places, be it happy, be it sad, be it angry, be it frustrated. And sometimes they can channel it into success and sometimes they can't. But I don't know if I see it, because it's just very difficult to be that precise and that detail oriented if you do let the emotions stewing inside of you get the best of you. And he's just been so successful for so long that
we'll see. And that's the thing.
And he has the get back coach. I understand all of that in game. He gets riled up, sure. But it's a results oriented business, and Mike Stoops did not have the results.
Well, and that's the point.
Right.
I think that's the point. I understand taking an opposing view to the hire. I understand that.
Sure.
There are plenty of folks who had a similar opposing view of Marcus Freeman when he got hired at Notre Dame. He didn't have any head coaching experience.
He's won. Yeah.
He didn't have any head coaching experience, right?
Right. Same with Lincoln Riley. Yeah.
Lincoln Riley. I mean, there are plenty of guys who haven't and have gone on to great things, but
right.
I understand the criticism. If you're a fan out there and you're saying, wow, he doesn't have any experience building a program. This is a program that's a top 10 program at the very worst. We should get somebody who actually has experience doing this. I get it from that standpoint. I don't get it from the comparison to Mike Stoops standpoint, because as you said, results oriented, Mike Stoops was not a good defensive coordinator. This wasn't.
No.
And Brent Venables has been good everywhere he's been, even if it's a limited sample size. It's just not a fair comparison, in my view.
I would be fast. I'm always fascinated to learn, and we get these more and more now. Here's how the hiring process went. Here's why it took so long, and here was the sticking point. Like, I want to know when Oklahoma approached Brent Venables, what were his demands? It was like, I want to choose this, I want to choose that, I want this kind of assistant pool, I want this many staffers in the recruiting department, because with this early signing period, you gotta get somebody in there. You gotta get somebody in there, right? So. The leverage, especially with so many jobs this year, was fully on the coaching side of things, rather than the school side of things. So fascinated to see Oklahoma is a powerhouse program that has fully dedicated itself to winning football games, but fascinated to see all of these guys. Like, what were the sticking points? What do the assistant pools look like? What do the perks look like? What are the changes in vision that are going to happen right away? I love all that process-oriented stuff. I don't know why.
Yeah, that's the good stuff.
I'm into it. I guess since I saw, there was some article where it was like Chip Kelly, he's blasting music in Oregon practices, and, they're practicing at 6 a.m. They want them fresh. They want them like that stuff. I don't know why. So I love to read all that stuff. So it'll be interesting to see.
It's a weird breed. To go into this business. It requires a weird breed. You got to be a little bit off. In good ways, not being pejorative with that, but Brent Venables definitely runs a little hot sometimes. Yeah, I get it. Sure. I get it from that standpoint, but at least in the sample size we have, he's been pretty successful. Brooks here, excuse me.
Yeah.
On the record wants Coach Venables to get Joe Brady for his offensive coordinator.
Yep.
I think that will be a popular sentiment, not just at Oklahoma, but around college football. Anyone that needs an offensive coordinator, Joe Brady's name is going to come up in accordance with that.
Sure.
We've got a comment here from Tim. Why do you think this hire took so long, given that Clemson didn't have a conference championship game? Did it take that long? Because I feel like, to be honest with you, over the last week, we've aged about 10 years. Everything has moved so quickly. Normally, it doesn't move this quickly, right? Normally, it takes a little bit until these things come about. Normally, there aren't this many high-level openings. So this was a hyperactive coaching carousel cycle that we've been through, that we're still in, that could continue to spin all throughout the rest of December. Who knows, depending on how things go. I think Oklahoma was caught a little bit off guard by this.
Sure.
I think they were caught a little bit off guard by it. And they admitted as much, at least to the extent that you would read into it, when they said, we wish Lincoln would have given us a little bit more notice. Could use a little bit more notice on that.
Allegedly, the Lincoln Riley thing didn't come together until late night after Bedlam. And somehow you can knock out a complicated contract within a few hours. Obviously, there were conversations among representatives, hypothetical conversations, like if Lincoln Riley found himself interested after Bedlam, what would he think of?
Is that something you might be interested in?
Right? A through P, yeah. So, yeah, those things, the decisions might come together pretty quickly, and the conversation with the president, the athletic director, the official conversation might come together pretty quickly. But I imagine, like, Brent Venables has it good. He wants to be absolutely sure he can get what he wants from Oklahoma, and it's a back and forth. And we're seeing more than ever. The pictures. I don't know if you saw the TMZ style pictures of Joe Castiglione, the Oklahoma AD, traveling. It was very TMZ, traveling to Brent Venables' lake house, I believe. I don't know how those pictures came about. If it was like a quote unquote leaked, but like, here's the secret. Yeah, I thought it was very strange. But yeah, these guys are on the road. These ADs are on the road trying to secure, trying to lock in, and it has to happen quickly. And obviously, in the back of Joe Castiglione's mind, they're like, okay, if we're looking for a coach, these are the people we are going to call immediately. And obviously, rumors swirled about Oklahoma, and Matt Campbell, he's not interested, whatever. And they moved quickly. They moved quickly for a reason, and now it's a matter of assistance. It's a matter of, because usually we have, right when the coaching changes happen, it's right around the national championship game, and signing day isn't for another few weeks. And there's a big coaches convention that happens. Right. It changes cities and stuff like that. So this whole networking event as new staffs are being filled out, and there's this general rhythm to how the operations work around the country and building new staffs and going through coaching changes. Now it is just haphazard. Now it's texts and phone calls, and I'm sure somebody got DM'd accidentally. It's all over the place, and it's going to come together quickly, just like it is coming together quickly of who like Marcus Freeman is retaining and who Brian Kelly can't convince to come to LSU and all that. And so I imagine more and more news is, like, I saw somebody in our comments said Bill Bedenbaugh, the noted offensive line coach at Oklahoma, is going to stay in Norman.
That'd be great.
I haven't seen that confirmed anywhere.
That'd be great, though. That'd be great.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think to answer the question more directly, I don't think it took that long. I just think it caught him a bit off guard when Lincoln went to USC. Even if the deal had been in the works for a while, it seemed to catch them off guard. They seemed to take a day to like process it and then get out there on the road, start making calls. And I would imagine if you feel like you've got Brent Venables on the hook, maybe it takes a little bit longer to make sure that you give him what he wants, because you're essentially bringing a native son home. I don't know if the market is going to be all that big for Brent Venables, given what he's being paid and given what other openings are out there at the moment. Right. So if you're Joe Castiglione, you feel pretty good about landing this guy. I don't know if you necessarily feel that time crunch, especially after a conversation or two. If you feel like there is genuine interest, you may not feel the need to really accelerate things, right? You don't have to. So in the end, they get a good guy. They get a good guy. They get a good hire, someone that Oklahoma people are successful with. Marty's fired up.
I like that. Hey, Marty, boomer, lightning, 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 lightning. I like it. I like it. Be enthusiastic. Like, I am under the working impression that Oregon's going to have a new coach shortly. That is my belief. I have not spoken to Rob Mullins or Phil Knight or anybody who would probably know better than I, but that's the impression I'm under, having certain conversations. Not a big surprise. But whoever they hire, my immediate instinct is going to be, all right, let's figure out how this is going to work. Let's figure out how this is going to succeed, whoever it is. And I don't have those names. That'll be another stream we do. But be enthusiastic. Throw yourself in and commit to the new guy. And if he disappoints you, he disappoints you. But it's so, like, I like enthusiasm. That's the person I'm trying to become. There was something else. Oh, the Reverberations, by the way, with Venables. Got a bunch of Clemson defensive commits now, right? Who have not yet signed. We're like, oh, shit, I wanted to play. My wife is calling me. I apologize. I I wanted to play for Brent Venables, and now I don't know who's going to be calling the defense and organizing the defense that I'm going to be playing in.
Yep.
Maybe I should wait to sign. Maybe I should look around a little bit more because I want to spot somewhere great. If I'm Clemson material, probably Alabama material, I'm probably Florida material, I'm probably Ohio State material. It changes some reverbs, or changes reverbs. It offers reverbs on the recruiting trail.
Ryan writes in here. He says, maintaining some staff at OU is going to be essential for recruiting. Don't want to have to clean slate everything. And Venables, Josie have a great relationship. Yeah. So to the point, I do think that having some continuity, Brent Venables knows a lot of these guys, Dan.
Yeah.
He knows a lot of these guys from, at a minimum, his time in the coaching world, but certainly his time at Oklahoma. So you'd hope that they can build some continuity plan to keep things going in a good direction, because things are going, generally speaking, in a good direction. It's just a bit of a curveball with Lincoln Riley deciding to take that USC job. So while we have so many people tuning in, we appreciate it. Thank you for spending part of your evening with us. Of course, the news of the evening, Brent Venables leaving his defensive coordinator post at Clemson, going to take over at Oklahoma. Bruce Feldman tweeted it out a little bit ago that officially it was a go. He's going to be the guy.
Mm-hmm.
If you are unfamiliar with us, we are the Solid Verbal. We're a 3 times a week college football podcast, which you can find at solidverbal.com. If you go down in the description, there's a link to get to our podcast. Unfortunately, for this time of year, as things go, we just can't fit it all into on-demand audio. So
Correct.
The recap show that comes out tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. on our otherwise normal podcast feed won't have the news about Brent Venables, not yet. The Wednesday show that we publish early Wednesday morning we'll talk about that. Maybe we'll have more coaching news to discuss at that point as well. While you're here, though, we would encourage you, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to the YouTube channel. We've been doing streams like this every time a new coach gets hired, especially some of the bigger ones. There could be more to come. Only time will tell. If you subscribe, though, you get notified anytime we go live, anytime we post anything new. It's not just the live stuff here on the Solid Verbal YouTube channel, Dan.
And anytime any breaking news happens that at all touches Notre Dame, Ty calls his mom live on the show.
Sometimes I call Mama H. Yeah, sometimes I call Mama
strong
H.
opinions. Yeah,
she does have strong opinions. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. We do appreciate that, Dan. Any parting shots here before we let the fine people go this evening? One more time, Brent Venables to Oklahoma, officially official.
Boomer Sooner. That's my parting thought. I hope it's awesome. I hope it's a new era for Oklahoma football, because they did a little dirty. They were done a little bit dirty by Lincoln Riley dipping out the morning after. That's brutal, and it's part of the game. It's nothing new. It's part of college football. But I want those frowns turned upside down, because I like college football excitement. That's who I
know,
am.
Kitty City style, Dan. Let's turn it upside down. Let's get Oklahoma back on the straight and narrow.
Yeah.
My name's Ty Hildebrandt. That's Dan Rubenstein. Again, we're the Solid Verbal. Check us out, solidverbal.com. You can find the podcast link down below in the description. Check out our Patreon at verballers.com. More to come. Subscribe to the channel. We'll talk to you all soon. Stay solid.
Peace.